So it's an exciting day for us here at Manic because we are launching the new Scott Wave saltwater fly rods. It's always an exciting day when you're launching a new Scott rod. They don't come around very often. Some brands pump rods out left, right and centre. Scott are very calculated in how they bring rods out. And I know the philosophy is really if they can do something a little bit better or a little bit new, they will do it. If they can't, then they'll wait. And this is one of those rods we've waited for. So it is a premium rod, but it does sit below the Scott sector. I think the cool thing with Scott is they've really been at the forefront in fly rod design and especially saltwater fly rods over the last number of years. And the Wave has got all the benefits of that, those technologies and all those designs. So I'll talk you through this Wave series. So as I mentioned with Wave, these rods are premium. So if you notice, even cork handle, this is floor grade. This is, the highest quality Portuguese cork you can get. And, there's not a lot of fillers in there, really high quality. This reel seat is a custom-made reel seat, twin locking rings and a nice sliding ring there, a really cool woven filler in there, and really nice build. So that is all quality. You'll notice this classic unground Scott finish, which is super durable and super proven, especially critical on these light performance saltwater rods that you get that strength and is maintained in the rod. The components, these are a stainless steel SIC stripping guide, so 2 stripping guides, and stainless steel snake guides. So this is the same level of componentry as you'll get in lots and lots of rods. People, other brands, they're top rods, and of course Scott are pumping it out on this Wave. So really, really high quality components. If you look, nice big stripping guide there. So they're definitely not cheaping out on the build quality. And this is an important thing to note is these are all handcrafted in Montrose, Colorado. So again, they're not cheaping out on a imported blank, which is just finished in the US. This is a proper, fully manufactured in the US fly rod. And the beauty is, if in 10 years time you break this rod, it can go back to the same factory and take the same care to rebuild it back to spec. So as I mentioned with Wave, Scott really haven't held back on build quality at all. So again, US made, really, really nice details, even down to little alignment dots when they lay out the guides and for placement. So, perfectly built. But the blank is really where all the technology comes, and so again they've been leading design in saltwater fly rods for a number of years, and this blank has a lot invested into it, and Jim Bartschi, who's the rod designer, has put his heart and soul into building this. One of the critical parts of how they build rods and technology is what's called hoop strength reinforcement. So the hoop strength is all about how the tube of rod holds up and stays round. So there's loads of different ways of creating hoop strength. And Scott's method is what they call arc. And so often with premium rods is the price pointed series, they don't use technologies like arc. What they tend to use is basic scrim fibre, which is far cheaper to build, and it's just, one, the materials are cheaper, and then 2, the build process is really quick. So there's less labour and the rods end up costing less. But with Scott, with this, they've done the opposite. They've kept the technology in there. So arc essentially is a unidirectional fibre which winds around the blank, and it gives the rod the hoop strength. And so the cool thing is they can lay up some extra strength where they need to, especially around a ferrule area, and especially around the butt of a rod where there's some lifting power needed. And so what you get is these rods which are really, really light, but they're still incredibly strong. And so I think it's really noticeable, again, that you have a rod of this caliber, and although it's priced under sector, I reckon you feel these in the hand, and they are lighter than most people's premium rods, and incredibly durable. So that arc is a critical part of that, and nice to see from my point of view is they haven't held back on building a rod like this. It's not cheaped out with cheaper techniques, and they're using their nice technologies like arc in here. One of the things you'll notice, there's definitely some slimmer blanks visually on the rack. This is a real design philosophy, especially in saltwater for Scott. So this is what they call X-core or expanded core. So these rods have a very fast action, so very steep taper, slim walls, and the only way they can create those slim walls is this unground finish. So you're making sure that you create a thin wall and you're not damaging that wall through a grinding process. The benefit of that is you get this true Scott feel. So you get this real great sensitivity through the rod. One, when you're casting, so you can feel the line, and two, when you're stripping flies or when you're playing a fish. So fantastic feel, which is a real signature of all Scott fly rods. But that X-core is a critical part to how that rod works and how those features come into play. The other technologies which have come into this rod is React. So React has a lot to do with how the rod, it straightens off a flex point. So it's really easy to understand that when the rod bends with the weight of the line, it straightens and throws the line for you or casts the line. The other part of React, which is a little bit less obvious, is how the rod maintains its straightness throughout the casting path. So even if you're a really good caster, your tracking is never exactly perfect, especially in a fishing situation. So your rod tip will waver, and what React will do is keep that rod tip straight, and it essentially stops the rod from twisting throughout the casting movement. So that's what we call torsional stability, and it's really noticeable on these rods. We've cast this wave throughout the line weights, and the torsional stability is incredible, especially considering this isn't the top of the line Scott. So we compare this to the other models, and it's still incredibly great at tracking and holding that direction, even in a little bit of wind. So critical is that React technology. The last technology in the blank is what we call a multi-modulus layout, and so that means the material in the butt of the rod is very different to the material throughout the middle and the tip of the rod. And I think the critical thing I know is it's about Scott using the right materials throughout the rod and not just building a cheap rod or using a cheap process just to get a rod built. And so there's definitely cheaper ways they could build a rod or a simpler way, but the design that goes into this is making sure that every part of the rod from tip to butt works perfectly. And so these multi-modulus layouts not only give you incredible lifting power in the butt section and midsection, incredible stability for the cast, but also really nice flex throughout the tip. And again, very, very noticeable that this isn't just a cheaper rod. This is a rod built with the same kind of level of care and attention all the way through to the materials used. So Scott Wave, the series is all 9-foot, 4-piece. They come in this Cordura tube and obviously have a rod bag as well. They come in weights 6 through to 12. So we've cast our way through the whole series. Again, I think Jimmy, who has designed them, has done a fantastic job on getting every single model dialed. The 6 weight for us is actually going to be a great backcountry trout rod or a streamer rod. So a serious kind of fast action trout rod at a great price. Then all the way through, those 7, 8, 9 are really great flats rods. 10, I think for us, will be a really great kingfish rod here in New Zealand. And that 11 and 12, I think the 12 will be It's got loads of power, can be a great GT rod in the islands, and there's definitely no compromise on these models, so pretty neat. The other great thing, I said it at the start, is this whole rod is made in Montrose, and I think it's a really neat thing that Scott are just keeping to their heritage of American manufacturing. They do a really great job on servicing and warranty. It's always a tricky thing when you break your rod, especially if you're in the middle of a trip or in the middle of a season, but we've found that Scott are turning around rods really quickly. They communicate incredibly well on warranties, and it's all been done just for the price of some freight between New Zealand, Australia and the US, so pretty cost effective. And the cool thing is you can invest in a rod like this, and in a number of years they will repair it back to the spec. So I think the Scott Wave, check it out in store. It is well worth the investment. It's a really, really sweet series of rods, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it out in the water this year.